It's episode 249 of the Bionicle Inspiration series, and today we're going to be talking about Titans. So when I say Titans, I mean the big, large, and in-charge Bionicle MOCs that just look cool. Obviously, Titan, the word Titan is inspired from some of the larger Bionicle sets. That was sort of the class of set, as it were. So that's sort of where the name's coming from. And, sometimes we did have some official Titan sets that LEGO produced that weren't exactly like large creatures, but, still it was a sort of impressive looking set that had some sort of additional feature to it or something. But really what I mean by Titan is a big old Bionicle that looks cool. So we'll do what we always do here on the Bionicle Inspiration series and cover a bunch of Bionicle MOCs from across the Bionicle community to inspire you so that you can build your own cool Titans and other Bionicle MOCs. But I did say this was episode 249, which of course means next episode is 250, which is kind of a nice landmark. I have no plans for that, but if you have any suggestions, I will certainly take them on board. But 250, of course, means it'll be a fan-submitted MOCs episode, because every 10th episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series, that's what we do. So by all means, please submit your Bionicle MOCs to be featured in that episode, and of course, all the other future episodes. And you can do so, of course, through the submission email that's on your screen right now. Send me whatever you want, doesn't really matter, and I'll consider it for the episode, and I'll consider it for all the other episodes as well. This episode was going to be about vehicles, because people had been requesting that, but I looked through my submissions, and there was a distinct lack of vehicle MOCs, and I even looked around my normal places to look around for MOCs, and I couldn't really find many. The only ones that I could find I'd already featured in past vehicle episodes, so by all means, if you have some vehicle MOCs, I'd also love to see those, whether that's for the fan-submitted MOCs episode or not. Maybe, episode 251 will be about vehicles, we'll see. But hey, that's something that you guys have been hungry for. I promise I was actively trying to do it, but it was a little tough, couldn't find much for it. Anyway, enough rambling about other stuff, let's dive into the episode. The first MOC we've got today. Now, a bunch of these MOCs are taken from twitter.com. It's a place filled with very, very talented AFOLs and TFOLs, and they tend not to post anywhere else other than Twitter, so I definitely recommend checking out Twitter. There's some very talented people there. And also, a bunch of these MOCs, the descriptions on Twitter are not written in English, so I had to use the old Google Translate, so if there's any sort of typos or, incorrect translations and things, I humbly apologize. But this MOC here is called Maiden Lloyd by Maiden Lloyd IBK. So immediately, this is just a very sort of strikingly beautiful MOC. I love the color scheme on this. Lime and that sort of magenta color there, as well as some trans pink. Just sort of all sorts of different shades of pink here. Gorgeous. Throwing it in with a bit of black and red and even a subtle hint of gold. There's a crazy amount of colors, but there's something about it that seems so sort of like oriental and like springtime, or there's just something really pretty about it. So this combination of colors here is just so nice. Specifically, I think the color combo of the lime and the pink, like I mentioned before, really like that. So hey, if you're looking for two colors that go nicely together, your magentas, your pinks, and your limes, ooh, very nice. So yeah, what I like about this is it's a weird dragon snake thing. I always love seeing MOCs that aren't just a typical sort of humanoid, 2 legs, 2 arms. I always like seeing things that sort of, stretch the limits a bit. So it's a bit more of, a snake, kind of has some sort of dragon-like qualities, and then it's got some big old wings as well, which is just really cool. So just a very nice sort of silhouette to this MOC. I also, on those wings, really like the use of the Invasion from Below plant pieces, which are pieces that came in a variety of different colors. But there's something about it that looks very much like sort of like petals on a flower or like a cherry blossom or something like that, which kind of fits with the vibe of this MOC. I don't know, it's cool. So it's interesting that those wings are not only using a piece in a very creative way to give it that sort of feathered wing look, but it also is starting to mimic other sort of things, like the flower petals and stuff, like I said. So, yeah, it's cool. It's just really unique and really different. I really, really like that. And also, it's a subtle thing I mentioned before, these trans pink dishes on the tail here. They're simply just attached because it's pretty much your sort of stock standard CCBS bones and a lime green shell on the top. But then putting those dishes on there with that pneumatic T-tube that we often see on the sort of like finger designs that we see across many different MOCs on this show. I love that. I don't know, there's something about just inserting the disc on like that just kind of looks nice. I don't know what it is. I don't really have much else to say about that, but it just looks cool. And you know what? The rule of cool is important. Sometimes it's nice to be like, oh, okay, I'm using this Lego technique because of the color blocking and the textures need to match, and I have to make sure the proportions are all, equal so that they mimic that of a real human and blah-blah-boo. But sometimes the rule of cool, it looks nice. It doesn't necessarily adhere to any techniques or any sort of quote-unquote rules of mocking. but it looks cool and I like it. So, you know what? Sometimes the rule of cool is very important, and I think those dishes on the tail are very cool. So yeah, this MOC is fantastic. The head design is also quite gorgeous as well. I know the subtle little eyes and the sort of curvature using that lime green sort of whatever that sort of CCBS connector piece is. We saw it before on this MOC here, or not this MOC, this set, but in a different color there. Yeah, just a cool piece. It just sort of forms a nice sort of dragon-like head shape to this head design here. It's gorgeous. So fantastic MOC here. Let's move over to the next one. This one here, it didn't actually have a name on Twitter, so at the moment, I'm just calling it BionicleMOC. And the person who made this is called Aprprprprprr, or that's probably how you pronounce it. So I adore this MOC. Some of the images here are what I believe are actual sort of completed images of this MOC, and then I'm also going to throw in some images that were also on Twitter of sort of like work in progress shots, which can give you a bit of an idea of how it's designed, but also it just sort of is a bit more sort of like zoomed in shots so that you see those details in a bit more kind of close up detail there. So what I like about this is the head design. It's using the Witch Doctor mask piece here, but it looks like he sort of cut the bottom out of the Witch Doctor mask, and it gives it a pretty distinct, pretty cool look. And I loved how he's shoved all these different things coming out of the eyes, so I don't know, it looks like some sort of weird mechanical details and forms this gorgeous looking eye. And then you can even see some of these like tubes kind of flowing out of it. I don't know, there's something really kind of creepy about it, and it seems sort of more kind of like organic and mechanical, like some sort of weird experimentation gone wrong or something. It's just a really beautiful aesthetic. So really cool to see a little bit of sort of customization on those pieces. Actually, he might have taken the bits he cut out on the bottom and used them as eyebrows on the top, if I'm looking at this correctly. I think that's what I'm seeing. That's kind of cool. So yeah, really interesting way of customizing it there and making the mask look even cooler than it already was. So that's awesome. I love all these back details as well. Whatever's going on with this like plant in this container at the back there, and there's like this weird pillar and some other different things. I don't know what it is. It's really, really cool though. I kind of get the sense that, yeah, maybe this is some experiment gone wrong, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's sort of gained sentience and it's living in some sort of post-apocalyptic world, and it's taken this plant and it's storing it on its back, and it's taking it to the motherland so that I don't know, it'll be safe and he can regrow nature and bring life back to the world. I don't know. That's just what I'm seeing from that one little detail. Whether that's accurate at all to the backstory behind this or whatever, it doesn't matter. I think it looks cool. The rule of cool strikes again. So it's nice. Plus that sort of pop of green really, really shines on this MOC. We've also got a bit of a pop of orange on this MOC too, sort of around the sort of like pecs on this MOC here. That's also kind of cool. It kind of fits with this almost sort of like, not quite cyberpunk aesthetic, sort of like kind of a post-apocalyptic like aesthetic for it, yeah. I don't know, it's nice, that sort of pop of color there. It kind of looks like maybe that armor shell there has sort of fallen off and the characters maybe repaired it using scrap metal or something. It's cool. It's really cool. Especially it's got some of that like sticker detail on there, which I don't think is an official Lego sticker. I'm not sure. But it works well and looks cool. It's also nice to see some tires being really effectively used here on this MOC. It's cool to see in some of these whip photos how the MOC looked without the tires and then how it looked with the tires. Two very different aesthetics that look gorgeous, and using tires in MOCs is such an underrated, beautiful thing to do. So definitely play around with it if you haven't, because like we can see here, it forms this really distinct aesthetic. It's gorgeous. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about, you can see it here in this shot, is how he's done the elbows on this MOC, kind of having that double jointed look. But what I love about it is the way that the hand connectors kind of jut out, almost like sort of, I don't know, there's something a bit more sinister about it, just the sort of shapes of it. And it reminded me of this thing that I saw the other day on Instagram. Let me get it up here. This is from an account called Map Effects, but it's sort of been posted as well on a different account called Dimension Door Maps. And this was sort of a guide about using kind of shape language when you're drawing maps. So not necessarily related to Bionicle directly, but some of these sort of artistic principles I think can very easily be translated to Bionicle. So let's go through this here. So it says, shape language is used in character design to give personality through shapes. But this principle can also be used for maps, or not maps, Bionicles in this example here. So what he's saying here is like, okay, you look at a circle, and so what sort of words come to mind when you see a circle? Well, it's very soft, it's harmless, peaceful, approachable, changeable. Sort of those round edges like that, it's sort of warm and inviting, you know? You look at a square, what do you think? Oh, solid, sturdy, strong, reliable, inflexible, you know? You think it's on a sort of firm foundation, it's got hard edges, it knows what it's doing, you know? Or you look at a triangle, it's very sharp, directional, dynamic, dangerous, which is cool, you know? You see that, you see these sort of almost sort of like spikes on each side of the triangle, and you think of, you know, maybe evil or something sinister, perhaps. So we take this and we maybe put this into a Bionicle. So we can see here in some of these other images, you know, you see these different castles that use the different sort of shape language here. So you see the circles on a sort of castle like that. Kind of looks like clouds. It maybe looks like you're in heaven or something. You look at the sort of squares being used to create this castle here. You think, oh, we're in like a really sort of successful city that thrives on, you know, industry and you know, a good work culture. It's a very sturdy city that can't be penetrated by, you know, an invading army or something. And then we look at this castle here that has a more sort of triangular look to it, and you think, oh, it's sinister, it's evil. That's where the dark wizard lives. And it's funny because just by using those sort of different shape languages, the different sort of lines or the curves on those shapes, you instantly get some character being communicated, which is really cool. So taking that and putting it into Bionicles, it's something you can, you know, very easily use to communicate the type of character. Are they more sort of rigid and strong, so they have more sort of like rectangular, square-like lines to them, or kind of curved lines for being a little bit more sort of soft and cutesy, or those sort of sharper lines for being a little bit more sinister and evil. And when I look at these elbows here, I think kind of more of that sort of triangular look. It looks a little bit more sort of unhinged or unpredictable because it's sort of jutting out in weird directions like that. It's cool. And even like the fingers on this mark and a few different things here really does communicate this sort of more sinister, creepy look for this character. You could see it in a horror movie, you know? It's just cool. It's really, really cool. So it's lovely to see some of the different artistic principles being used there to really bring this character to life. Fantastic. All right, let's move over now to the next MOC here. This one is a brilliant, brilliant MOC. It is by Uran120, and this is called Chouchin Ankou, which I do believe is an actual thing in the real world, and I'm probably mispronouncing, but I'm sure you out there know what it is better than I do. But what I would call this thing is an anglerfish, yeah, anglerfish. Yes, I was going to say angelfish. That's a different fish, I do believe. This is the one in Finding Nemo. But this is a really, really nice recreation of that specific type of fish. Now, this builder here, he actually tends to do a fairly large amount of different sort of like recreations of real-life creatures. And they all typically just use this color scheme as well, which it's cool. You know, it kind of makes sense. You just go like, hey, every MOC I build, I'm just going to use like 3 or 4 different colors. And then when you need to buy stuff, you just buy stuff in that color, and it makes things pretty easy, I guess. But, you know, obviously it's a bit of a commitment if you want to do that, but it's up to you. Maybe that works for you, and maybe it's a good way to budget your, you know, the amount that you spend on Lego. Regardless, though, I love how this looks. The shaping on this is fantastic. We can see when we sort of study the jaw and even some of the bits at the back here, that it sort of seems to be made out of a bunch of different mixel joints. You can kind of see that on the edge of the mouth here. And then towards the back where the sort of like side fins are, we can see some light grey clips as well that sort of, you know, tape everything together and form this beautiful round shape, which is perfect for a fish like this. Really, really cool. So it's lovely to see all these crazy cool angles forming such a realistic look here. It's really, really quite impressive. I also really like how he's done the kind of like, I don't know the scientific term for it, but the sort of like bioluminescent little ball thing hanging out of its face, which it uses to sort of lure in prey. I love the sort of beautiful pop of gold there. Really, really just shines, and, you know, is quite fitting for the actual thing because it does in fact shine with the real creature. So lovely pop of gold there that works beautifully. The teeth in this mouth is also brilliant. Seeing all these different teeth on different angles and having them in different sizes and shapes and stuff like that, it looks so very, very cool. So yeah, it's really, really well done. I love how this looks, and it's great to see such a realistic, accurate depiction of a real-life creature built in a more sort of system-heavy MOC here. Awesome to see. Let's move over now to the final MOC in this episode. This is a recreation of my boy Chirox, the actual official set, but this one is called Black Puppet Chirox, and this is built by Soji Gakari. This is gorgeous. I love the tail design on this. It's so cool seeing all these different Huna masks here forming this tail design. And it's so interesting too because, naturally those Huna pieces have a sort of gap in the top of the mask. So it's nice to see that being used to his advantage here. And he's kind of feeding what I imagine is CCBS bones, might be something else. Can't quite tell from this specific picture. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe you can see it and I can't, but that's what I would imagine it is. Regardless, it looks cool. So it's clever to feed the bone through that natural gap in the Huna there and create a gorgeous looking design that sort of feeds around different corners and angles there. Really, really cool. I also love the fact that he's used that specific Huna piece because on the original Chirok set, he has that beautiful mask which has that marbled silver and black color scheme to it. And now this sort of same color scheme, of course, appears on, is it Mutran, the little Matoran friend that he has? That is not Mutran. That is his cousin with the lime black version. What is his Matoran's name? Let me Google that. Chirok. That's his name. So he has a very similar mask as well, which has that same sort of color scheme. We also have Mantex the Baraki, and he had some sort of like shoulder pads that had, again, that exact same color scheme. And the Huna, those feet as well, they all have that color. So it's really cool to use all the different pieces that have that color scheme and put them into the one MOC here because, well, you may as well continue that aesthetic and continue that look across the whole thing, so you may as well get every piece that does it. Really clever idea. And it's nice to see them being used as sort of like leg armor, shoulder pads, all sorts of stuff. I love specifically how Korup's masks are being used on the torso there to give it this interesting like rib cage look. It's really interesting. I know, I think that looks really cool. And I also love seeing Chirox's mask again being used as like knee pads here almost. It's nice too because the mask is sort of flipped on its side, so you don't necessarily see that it's Chirox's mask as much. You can still kind of see depending on the angle that you look at it, but it's tilted at enough of an angle there that you can't instantly tell. So it's a nice way to continue that same sort of like texture that the original mask has and put it elsewhere on the MOC, so everything kind of blends together like that. It's really cool. Plus it makes for a good kneecap. Just a nice little part use there. It's very cool. The eye design on this is also pretty cool. I don't know the specific piece that's being used there. I want to say it's just some type of claw piece. But it's a little... Oh, no, I think it's Borok eyes. I think they're sort of being inserted in a specific way there. But yeah, I believe it's just sort of white Borok eyes, and it creates a pretty cool looking eye design that's a little bit similar to Batman of sorts, with just that pure white eye there. But yeah, something kind of creepy about it. It looks really cool. So this is a fantastic recreation of a great set, Chirox. I've always liked Chirox. And some fantastic techniques on this. Really, really well done. So that's it for a few different Titans in this Titan-themed episode of the Bionicle Inspirations series. If you would like to see your own MOCs on the show, like I said, don't forget to submit. I showed you how to do it at the start of the episode, so go and check that back out if you've forgotten how. Additionally, in the description are links to all the MOCs you saw in today's episode, so be sure to head over to Twitter and follow all of these builders and let them know what you think, because they're very, very talented, and I'm sure they'd appreciate a comment or two. Additionally, in the description below are links to my own social media, so by all means, please check out the stuff that I've got going on over there, including my Patreon as well, where you can have access to weekly podcasts and other bonus content like Q&As, access to my private Discord server, and other behind-the-scenes stuff as well. I also have a P.O. box if you want to send anything my way. It's on your screen right now, so if you are inclined to do so, that's one way to do it, but there is no obligation to do so if you are not interested. And I believe that's everything. Thank you very much for watching. Happy building. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.